Welcome. So in this video, we'll be answering this question before us. It says, write down the equation of the image of the graph y equals the square root of x when the following transformations have been applied. Firstly, we have a dilation by a factor of 2 from the y-axis. And then the next thing that we have is followed by a reflection in the x-axis. And then that is followed by a translation of 7 units in the positive x direction. So whenever you've got these transformation type of questions, remember there are two ways of approaching them. The first way, let me just draw a partition here. The first way is by inspection. And this is the easy way, but sometimes more prone to error. And then the other way is by the method. This is the more time-intensive way, but less prone to error. So let's start with by inspection. So we begin by writing down what we're starting with, where we're starting with y equals the square root of x. Then we're performing a dilation by a factor of 2 from the y-axis. Because it's from the y-axis, we know we're going to take the reciprocal of 2. So I'm going to go y is equal to the square root, and then into my x spot, I'm going to put a half x. So I'm replacing x with a half x. So remember, I'm taking the reciprocal of 2 because I'm dilating from the y-axis. The next thing that I'm doing is I am reflecting in the x-axis. If I'm reflecting in the x-axis, that means I put a negative out the front, like so, and I'm going to get 1/2 x. The next thing that I do is I perform a translation of 7 units in the positive x direction. Now, this is where most likely the mistake will occur. So what you have to do here, if you're doing it by inspection, is make sure, so let me just first write out everything I have to write. You have to make sure that you replace x with x minus 7 close bracket. So remember, it's in the positive x direction, so that means that you put x minus 7 here. But the big thing is that you replace this x with x minus 7 with the brackets. If you don't do that, you'll get it wrong. So this is what it's going to look like. And also take note of the fact that this can look different. You could write this like so. You could write this as y is equal to a negative square root, and you could write it as x minus 7 over 2. That 2 is the same thing. All right, so let's put a box around our answer there, or let's highlight our answer. So this is going to be our answer. You could also write it like this. This would also be correct. Okay, so let's now do this by the method. So if we're doing it by the method, remember, we always start off by saying, I'm starting with a point. I then am transforming that point and getting a new point called x dash y dash. So I'm starting with a point. Now, x dash, well, I'm performing a dilation by a factor of 2 from the y-axis. So that means my x value is going to be multiplied by 2. And then I am doing a reflection in the x-axis. That means I'm going to get negative y. And then I'm also performing a translation of 7 units in the positive x direction, so I plus 7. So take note of the fact that when you're doing it by the method, you're taking everything quite literally. So when it says 7 units in the positive x direction, you just plus 7 to the x. The only thing you have to be careful of is that when you're dilating from the y, that means you're multiplying your x, and when you're reflecting from your x, you're putting a negative in front of your y. So it swaps over with your dilations and reflections. So just be aware of that. Okay, so now that we've done that, what we can now say is x dash, so my new point is going to be 2x plus 7, and y dash is going to be equal to negative y. And now I'm going to solve for x and y. So over here I'm going to get x dash minus 7 over 2 is equal to x, and then over here I'll get negative y dash is equal to y. I now am going to sub those values into my original graph, which was this. So that means into my y spot, I'm going to put negative y dash. And into my x spot, I'm going to put x dash minus 7 over 2, because that's what x equals. X dash minus 7 over 2. Let me see if I can make this square root a bit nicer. And then the last step is that you drop the dashes, and of course this negative can be, this side can be divided by negative 1, this side can be divided by negative 1. So I'm going to be left with negative the square root of x minus 7 over 2. And as you can see, that is the same thing that we got over here. So this is the same as this. Negative x minus 7 over 2. So this is just the two ways of going about it. So just to recap what we did by the method, we found what x dash and y dash were. We then solved for x and then plugged x and y into our original graph to get this. We dropped the dashes and that's what you do. So either of these ways are acceptable. There are 3 marks for this. So it'd be 1 for the reflection, 1 for the translation, and 1 for the dilation. So you can do whichever way makes you most comfortable. Hopefully you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one.